you got into this because the HOA that you were living in had issues.
Yeah, I felt it was malicious in the way they were doing things. I mean, there's a way to do things in life. Just because it's a nail doesn't mean we hit it with a sledgehammer right out of the gate. A lot of times we can just remove the nail. The best board members are the board members that don't want to be on a board.
Time for another episode of The Den. I'm Eric Wagner with the Knox Real Estate Group, and today I have a special guest, Robert Alexander, owner of HPC Management Group, an HOA company here in East Tennessee. So first of all, I just want to say thanks for being here. I'm actually really excited about this, having you on the show for a couple of reasons. One, you're in an interesting business that actually you directly deal with HOAs. Two, you're a very direct personality. You say it how it is, and I like that. So I'm really excited about this. I want to get your take on a lot of things here, from your perspective. But I'm just excited to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun.
Yes, I think it will be.
We've always had good conversations already, so
yes,
should be no different.
So before we get into too much about HOAs, tell me a little bit about yourself, about how you kind of got to this, a little bit of your background.
Well, moved to East Tennessee 16 years ago. I was in the military, active duty, and so got out of the military to come here for a job. We're not from East Tennessee, but that's just kind of how what brought us here was the job opportunity, and it was my first time living in an HOA community. So that was my first experience, and so while in there, things were kind of interesting to learn about, the way things were being done, notifications, how they were being sent out, and we had teenagers at the time, and they were going to fine our teenagers $500, if our kids jumped the pool fence, and we thought that was kind of crazy. So that really kind of piqued my interest of, what is an HOA? Why does it matter? What authority do they really have? How do they have that authority? Where does it come from? And so I just started educating myself on that. And in that process, ended up joining the board, and then had hired several management companies throughout East Tennessee area here, and just wasn't working. And so I thought I could do it better.
So all right. So just out of curiosity, you got into this because the HOA that you were living in had issues.
Yeah, I felt it was malicious in the way they were doing things. I mean, there's a way to do things in life. Just because it's a nail doesn't mean we hit it with a sledgehammer right out of the gate. A lot of times we can just remove the nail and work with people, and I think that's your better approach. And it was just that we'll probably get to this, but the best board members are the board members that don't want to be on a board. You've got to be concerned, even as me as a management company, when I go in, I interview people, they're interviewing me, but I'm interviewing them as well, because not all business is good business. Because if I feel like their reasoning for being on that board or bringing us in is unhealthy and is not going to be good, it's not a good partnership, and we won't do it.
Unhealthy like how?
They have an agenda. They're maybe they're looking to revenge, have a score to take care of, from previous issues, right? Or they're there for themselves because they've got a pet project that, wasn't approved before, but they're going to get approved now. And so, we're not going to be a part of things that are not in alignment with whatever their documents say.
So yeah, definitely. We're definitely going to talk about this kind of stuff some more, because I think that's the heart of how people feel about HOAs.
Yeah.
So the HOA you were in, that's the one that kind of spurred you on to be like, hey, I need to know more about how this works. As you went through those steps, did you end up running that one, or do you still live in that neighborhood?
Well, we won't discuss that part.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, actually, I did end up on the board, and it was what we call the military definition of shock and awe. I had met with him a couple times, the current board in place, and had some conversations, and they didn't really want to talk. It was such an adversarial event. So I said, okay, let me go educate myself, and I read the documents, and went out there, and like a good, entrepreneur, I went and recruited a very good team. And so went down to the board meeting, the annual meeting, and said, hey, I'd like to volunteer. They said they had one vacancy, and then I pulled out the governing documents and educated them and said, hey, well, it actually says everybody's a 1-year term here. So I think you're confused because the developer was no longer in play, and so they were confusing that. And crazy enough, the management company at the time did step in and read it out loud to everybody and said, he is correct. And so with that, I said, I'd like to nominate this person, and this person, and this person, and this person. And all 5 members were immediately removed from the board, and we replaced them. Yeah.
So the word coup comes to mind.
Yes, that would be, yes.
That's interesting.
They were not happy, we'll just say that. Because I had 38 proxies in my hand, too. That was the other part. They were, they just weren't following the guidelines. It really had not, had they just followed the rules and the governing documents, I'd have never gotten into this.
So I'm going to just make an assumption that your service, which thank you for your service, but your service experience has led to you being, I would say, really good at this.
I hope so, yeah, because the military is all about systems and processes and following SOPs, checklists, and that's all this is. The governing documents are processes. It outlines how you act or how the board's supposed to act, their roles and responsibilities, what things you can and cannot do. We can't, well, if you want a military acronym, MSU, right? Can't make shit up.
Gotcha.
So
right, because that can get you. Ultimately, that could get the whole board in trouble.
Yep, and that's one of our roles is to protect the board. Make sure they make good decisions based on the governing documents. They can't operate outside those documents. They really, if they plan to do something that's just abnormal, they need to seek legal advice, and that's what we try to encourage them to do.
So let's just back up just a hair because we jumped right into it.
Oh, it's a fun one.
For somebody listening to this who thinks they understand what an HOA is, can you help describe, Mike, in as easiest terms possible, what an HOA does?
An HOA is a community, and you can look at it as a business, right? Every HOA is its own business entity that collects dues, that pays for maintenance or other activities such as a pool, tennis courts, boat slips. So it has to collect those funds to maintain its amenities in good condition. And the reason the HOA exists is to protect the value of every property in there.
And how does it do that?
How does it, what's that?
Protect the value.
Because the governing documents are written in such a way that it's designed to, restrict certain activities, right? And those may be activities you like, but you just can't do them in this community because, if you like to work on your truck and it's going to take you a 6-month project and you want to have it out and you don't have any place to put it but in your driveway, well, that can be unsightly to the neighbor to the left and right of you or anybody else, right? And so if somebody comes into that community looking to purchase a home and they see maybe this dilapidated truck that's been sitting there and they can tell it's been sitting there next to 2 trailers, that's an eyesore maybe, and that's going to deter maybe the property being sold.
I 100% agree, and that's what I try to tell people is, especially your new developments, your newer developments, that's where you're going to see a lot of now HOAs, almost every new development.
Yeah.
But the whole goal is to create a little bit of that uniformity to where there is no quote-unquote eyesore, or there isn't that, ideally there's not that one house that has, a crazy-looking yard and everybody else's looks another way. Now, there are older neighborhoods that don't have HOAs.
That's right, yeah.
They also don't have typically any common ground, like you mentioned, so there's nothing really to maintain. Maybe this is one thing I think catches a lot of people is we'll have somebody moving in from out of town, and right off the bat they say, I don't want any HOAs.
Yeah.
Well, the hard part with that is when we're searching for properties is you can have an HOA and it only be there for the sole purpose of taking care of the sign at the front of the entrance.
Yeah.
And their actual rules are not that limiting. So you really have to be open minded to looking at multiple things.
Here's what we typically experience. We'll get a phone call, and the owner's upset because they probably got some type of notification, maybe, some courtesy notice or violation notice that they're in violation of some governing document, right? And then we'll ask them, well, I understand you just moved in, so we understand that, we'll give you some grace here and whatever, thanks for letting us know you corrected it. But you can access your governing documents online. We have every community has. Why? I've never seen them. What do you mean you've never seen them? Well, when we bought the house, no one ever gave them to us. Well, did you ask for them? No. And so a lot of times they've never taken the time to educate them on one of the biggest decisions they're ever going to make, which is purchasing a home, which is just interesting to me. I mean, you buy a $500,000 house in a community that has pool, clubhouse, everything, but you never took the time to read what you're buying into.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Or what do you mean I can't have my camper in the driveway? It's like, well,
if you've got every toy known to man, this is probably not the right place for you. I mean, you try to tell, but then they just get upset, and you're like, you understand, you had an opportunity prior to closing to read everything, and that's what you should have done. But
yeah, there are two governing bodies, articles, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to a property. I mean, there's the HOA, like we're in an HOA neighborhood, but there's also deed restrictions.
Yep.
And those are very kind of different at the same time. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but in an HOA, you can change rules.
Yeah.
Relatively easily.
Well, no, I wouldn't go that. No, because the governing documents, depending on how they're written, can be anywhere from 51% to 75% approval. So that means 75% of the people have to agree on a particular change. You can't even get our own government to agree on 75%. Right. So what makes you think you're going to get a neighborhood?
Well, true. Okay, yeah. So I'm in a small community. We have 30 homes.
Yep.
Very small. It's interesting because it was a brand new subdivision. It was billed as maintenance free, which to a certain extent it is. But I would say maintenance free is you still have to maintain your house. But our HOA does take care of things like mowing the yard. It sets up our irrigation and winterizes. It does those things, and it takes care of our entrance. We had one neighbor that has decided to put a pool in. Yeah. And the type of pool they wanted to put in was fiberglass. Well, our documents literally did not allow a fiberglass pool. So as a community, we got together. We said, hey, of course we did a little research, whatnot. We're like, hey, at the end of the day, why would you not? I mean, fiberglass pools aren't bad. Yeah. Especially like all the new ones.
Below ground, we're talking fiberglass.
Yeah, like a real pool. Yeah. And so we went through that process, and we changed our docs. Now our community, and we could talk about like the different types of management levels, but our community is we pretty much run it. We have an HOA management company that they don't manage it; they just do our financials.
Gotcha.
So what that meant is then we went through like all the steps. We had to find out like who needed to do what, and all the neighbors went door to door and signed stuff and went through a whole process. I will say the one thing that was interesting is that pool project was kind of sold to us as a community as taking a week or two. And they started it right before winter. Like right before the cold. I think we're on 4 months now that yard's tore up, and there's still stuff. I mean, the neighbor's still dealing with. So anyways, it'll look really nice when it's done. But if we had known maybe a little more, we might have pushed back just a little bit. Not to say you couldn't have it, but like, hey, like,
here's the expectation for timelines.
Yeah, will this really get met? Yeah, because it's unfortunate for the neighbors, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. Homeownership is such a personal thing. This is my house.
Yeah.
This is my property. This is how I want to decorate it. This is how I want to, do my garden or whatever. I want to do everything my way, um, which is great, and that's one of the benefits of homeownership. But sometimes things that we do impact those beside us,
Yeah.
and that's where, you know, there can be a rub. Um, so kind of talking about that, what does HOA management do? What does a management company do?
Management company. So we manage the HOA. So our goal is to seek out a partnership between the board and the homeowners, and in that partnership, our role will be to take care of all day-to-day activities, whether it's administrative, financial, or maintenance related, right? We also educate the board on certain activities that they can and cannot do, try to guide them and coach them, when they're trying to make some big decisions or looking at large projects. Good example, we had a community that wanted to spend $60,000 and they wanted to cut the guy a check that day for 60 grand. And we were like, well, we don't think that makes sense. Maybe we just give them a deposit. And then as the work progresses, we break it up into 5 payments and then we pay them over time. And that turned out to be the smart way because he actually ended up running off with the last check without completing the work. And so, they weren't out 60 grand, they were only out 12 grand, but we try to educate our communities that we work with, but it's all about the partnership. If there's not a partnership, we manage the communities, we don't run them. We report to a board, and it's ultimately their authority that we have to work with.
So why? I'm a I'm a homeowner. I live in a neighborhood, and it's got an HOA. Why do we need a management company? Like, what is the benefit of a management company? I understand now what you do, but
mostly it's time.
Okay.
It's the most valuable thing everybody has, and they're not making any more of it.
True.
And that's what people don't want to volunteer as much. Back in the day, I think you had more and more volunteers that would jump in and do these activities on their own. But, our kids are doing activities or we want to travel, whatever the case may be. People want their time, and their time is just too valuable not to just allow me or pay us to come in and do these things. That is the biggest reason why there's a management company that exists, in my opinion. Outside of that, we have the resources, we have the tools to do it better. We have software that's totally designed to manage HOAs. We give them a platform for their homeowners to access and utilize to get information quicker, faster, make payments. And again, back to the education piece, we're up to date on what goes on day to day. If a law changes, that we can educate those boards and the homeowners of, hey, here's where it's different now.
So you almost have like just certain pillars of why it makes sense. I mean, there's the time you're giving time back to the homeowners. There's the pillar of almost kind of like protection, because you're protecting them from making a mistake that could be costly.
Yep.
And then there's the pillar of just ease of use, right? I mean, that kind of ties into the time thing, but at the end of the day, I know I don't have time to do a bunch of research for something that isn't going to make me any money, right? Like that's not something that I just don't have time for that. And to be honest with you, doesn't sound exciting to me either. Now, if it was something where it was like my hobby, like, hey, I'd be all about it. But
you probably have a lot more volunteers for the boating club board than you do the HOA board.
Probably.
I'm just saying, yeah.
So, kind of going back to something you said earlier about what people used to volunteer more and people used to have maybe more time or whatever set aside to run their HOAs. I wonder if, is it possible that position typically would attract certain types of people that then help to give HOAs a bad name. Because in my experience, there's a lot of people out there that are very hesitant when it comes to HOAs, because in their mind, what they're picturing is a person walking around with a clipboard, measuring grass, checking your hedges, and basically judging and complaining about their neighbors. Could that be where this transition into more of a management style company takes a lot of that out?
Yeah, it creates a more consistent and I guess better continuity of applying the rules fairly across the board, right? There's no when people drive through your neighborhoods that work for us, we don't do subjective. It's black and white. So if it's black and white in the governing documents, that's what we write violations for. So it's very clear to the homeowner. Now, there are some subjective pieces, such as grass is a great example, right? What you may think looks neat and orderly, someone else may say, well, that's too tall and needs to be mowed, right? Or, that gnome is 6 inches tall. I would only agree for a 4-inch tall gnome. It's people get their opinions in there, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't work in that world. I work in the black and white world, because when you start getting in the opinion world, you better be consistent with it. And so we do allow boards to send us violations, and rightly so. But if they're sending us violations for something that's subjective on the one property, and we drive through and we see that they're not applying that same rule to another, we'll be very quick to let them know, hey, we are seeing this as well. Are you not seeing that same thing? And if they're like, well, no, that one's fine, well, then you can't, be, and then there's usually maybe some backstory. I hate to say it, you have to do some investigating to make sure that you're not maliciously applying a rule to somebody that's being, targeted.
In other words, I like this person, I don't like that person.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. That's why I say the best board members are the ones that don't want to be board members. If you've got a guy or a gal that's like, I'm the president, and there's probably a red flag there you need to look for and find out what it is.
I was at a meeting recently that had nothing specifically to do with anything we're talking about today, but I was at a meeting recently. It did have to do with a new development that's potentially coming to the area. And there was a fellow there who probably 5 times that I heard him say he was the president of such and such HOA.
Yeah.
I don't know what that, I don't know what power that wields. No. Maybe in that HOA it wields a lot. But that's what, when you say that, that's what that makes me think of is, I'm on my HOA board, and you're probably the first person I've told.
You don't go out to bars and go, hey, how you doing? It's my wife, Terry Jo. I am the president of such and such community.
Right. No.
You're lucky to meet me. Thank you.
Right. It's it is a very interesting personality set for that. I will say that I feel like we've been lucky in our community that we're in, that we're small, which doesn't mean much, because small, if 30 homes, if you have 3 people, raising a stink about something, then the whole community pretty much feels like they're raising a stink. But we all get along really well. And I will say it's a community of like older people.
Yeah.
So the interesting part about that is they have taken the time to do a lot of things, but they're so friendly about it. Yeah. And that's everybody wants to give somebody that opportunity to do something, but unless it makes absolutely no sense, like we changed the bylaws for that pool.
Yeah.
Didn't have to, but it made sense.
It made sense.
Well, yeah. Why would you keep that person from having a pool? Yeah. I will say I think it's a benefit in our community that things like lawn maintenance are included, because, for instance, I'd have to hire somebody anyways to mow my yard, but yep. If I didn't, I'd be the one probably with the tall grass, because I don't have time to mow my yard. Yeah. So I think that takes a little bit of that out of the equation, where a lot of these large neighborhoods, everybody's
Yeah.
totally responsible for their stuff.
Yeah, the types of communities, differ, right, between an HOA or a PUD, which is like a townhome in our world, considering that, or like a condo association, right? What you manage, differs with each type of community. And so, yeah.
So okay, so we have condos. All right. So in a condo community, you typically take care of what?
Yeah, it's all in. So you're typically responsible for exterior maintenance. That includes not just the grounds or the common area and the individual properties, but also the roofs, the sidings, the maybe exterior lighting on the property, crazy enough, floodlights for them. Even though they control the electric bill, if the floodlight goes out, you may have to replace the floodlights for them. The stonework around their property, essentially they are owning the walls in, and you've got the wall out. So that can be, it's much more expensive in a condo association because your dues are typically paid on a monthly basis because, well, your maintenance costs are significantly more, right?
Right.
A PUD type community like a townhome, very similar to condos, but yet they'll only cover the common area expenses, such as the yards as well as the common area maintenance, but they're not responsible for the exterior maintenance of the property.
So PUDs, we have here in East Tennessee, we have these weird attached homes that sometimes they look like people call them condos.
Yep.
Sometimes they could be condos, they could be PUDs, or they could just be attached houses.
Yep.
Um,
Threeplex, twoplex, fourplex kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. And so when looking at a community like that, I mean, obviously the biggest thing is to find out what the HOA covers, which sometimes, okay, so I'm going to pick on the industry a little bit. It's sometimes really hard to get that information from certain management companies. I can tell you that one thing we've learned here at the Knox Real Estate Group is everything's to be in writing.
Absolutely.
Because we have had that phone call and been told one thing, and then later told something else, and that's a problem. So getting that information though, because I have seen some, I know of one PUD in particular I'm thinking of where they did cover the roofs, right? The roofs were included in the HOA. However, they were changing that. They were taking it because of budgeting reasons. So you can never be too certain. Like you have to check.
Well, if you're having trouble accessing documents or getting accurate documents, you as a realtor should, your first line of defense is to go to the county you're in and go to the records office and get a copy because everything has to be filed with the county. So that's what I'd encourage someone to do. Don't rely on just the builder because some of the realtors, even if they're a builder and they're tied to, they got their own realty company and everything, they may not be the best source sometimes because they don't know what the left hand's doing sometimes.
We've gotten in the habit of our title company will send them to us, and that's been very helpful. But builders, so in today's world, new homes are typically built in a development. So that development is going to have an HOA.
Yep.
That HOA is typically managed. There's a handful of companies around here that seem to have, as you said, that tie-in agreement. The interesting part about that is, so I know I will tell you, we almost didn't buy the house we're in.
Yeah.
Because of the management company that managed it. We had such a bad experience at our previous place.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to name any names, but yeah, I'm not going to name any names, but we can say we're talking about HOAs and management.
Yeah.
And so at our previous place, we were in a condo out here in Farragut, and I was at a board meeting, and literally, like, we're trying to figure out, like there's issues with this property.
Yeah.
Things need to be worked out. There's disagreements with, how things should be handled, which is going to happen. And the fellow who owned this company literally raised his voice. Terry Joe had actually told me, like, hey, you need to come to one of these meetings because I'm appalled at how we're talked to.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had that exact same experience.
Yeah.
And at the end of the meeting, I mean, all I can say, is like, hey, I appreciate what you do. Don't ever,
Yeah.
ever talk to me like that again. Like,
I've had a very similar conversation when I was in the board role and we were hiring management companies, and my exact words were, I've never talked to you disrespectfully, so you're not going to do that to me. Do we understand each other? And that's how the conversation went because, yeah, you're there to educate, and sometimes we have to kind of lead a meeting a little bit, right, and kind of progress it and help the board through those things because they don't have that experience. But at no time do I argue or get into disputes with homeowners.
well, it's a weird. I mean,
I'm not there to argue.
no, and it's a weird position to be in. Like, you're okay. So in that role, the board, the homeowners are the customer.
Yep.
Where else would you go where the business owner yells at the customer?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, this is not okay. So that was one of my experiences. So we were leaving that, moving into this new construction community, and that builder uses that company, and we were like, whoa, like, I need to know, like, how long is this going to take? What are the rules? Like, what are our rules for switching? And literally, the minute the builder was out of the HOA,
Yeah.
we switched it.
Well, here's the issue. I think the number's like 80% of communities that are turned over from a developer to the homeowners will change to a new management company within a year or two. One, they do tie or they see that management company as the builder, right? They can't disassociate that relationship. So that happens, right? But that said, we have a process when it goes from the builder to being turned over to the homeowners. We immediately set a meeting up with the homeowners and say, hey, we need to elect a board immediately for you to transition this community over because we don't live there.
Right.
The management company is not going to accept the association in the condition it's in because it's not our association, it's not our community. So once we get a board in place, we tell them, hey, our very next step is for you to walk this community. If you see anything that you are unhappy with, document it. And then we're going to put that in a letter back to the developer or whoever that case may be and say, hey, here's some issues that we would like addressed prior to taking ownership or assuming the role as an association going forward. And that's seemed to work well for us. And we help both sides. Then we become Switzerland to some degree, and we help them navigate that final piece.
Yeah.
And
So when you say that the management company becomes kind of associated with the developer, what kind of topics, like what kind of things are they associating?
Oh, violations. We're enforcement of the violations. So, you guys work for the developer, and you don't know what goes on out here. I get it. There's a property that we manage right now, and there's on-street parking, right? That's just out of control. But the governing documents do not disallow on-street parking, and they are public roads. And so they're very frustrated. But yet the builder's like, hey, we don't want to change the governing documents because everybody bought based on what we submitted to them. So once we turn the community over, if the community at that moment wants to make those changes, we think they should do so because they're the community, which I agree with. They're trying to say, hey, it would be disingenuous of us if there's 50% or 75% of people that don't have a problem with the current parking situation, and we come in there and then we change it without their approval.
Right.
And so that's kind of
that's how you get sued.
Yeah, and so it's just the current people, the people that are frustrated with this parking and we're not doing anything about it, and you're like, hey, we can't. Here's what the documents say. It says they're allowed to park on street, provided this, that, and the other. And so there's frustration with that. And so when we get turned over, they immediately go, well, you didn't fix my parking, you're gone. And so you're like, well, it is what it is. You can only control certain scenarios, and some people, it's like skeptic, right? It's okay to be an open-minded skeptic, but it's not okay to be a closed-minded skeptic, And that's the thing. They have this preconceived idea of what it's actually supposed to be, and they've never even read the documents or something. I mean, so
One thing I want to say about said documents, right? Because in people wanting to change things, I think you have to really, really weigh what they mean, right? Because again, it's a governing document, right? Which a lot of people would like to use that kind of stuff for say control.
yep,
People go through, let's say you go through a divorce, you have children, so there's a parenting plan,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that parenting plan is a governing document,
yeah,
which incidentally it's there to hopefully help the scenario, but a lot of times it's used as you violated this,
yep,
Well, when you're creating that parenting plan, you got to be careful not to put something in there that you think is only going to affect that person because it actually impacts you both, right? So in this thing, it's like, okay, so on-street parking,
yeah.
well, somebody wants to then change it to where there is no on-street parking. Well, then guess what? There is no
Yeah.
on-street parking.
Yeah.
So that means that impacts you too.
And then you got a board member doing it the next week.
Yeah, I mean, so
Like, yeah.
that's where it's like it's really you got to be careful. We have townhomes. The builder built townhomes off of our neighborhood. So there's two neighborhoods, one entrance. In the townhome community, it's nice, but there was one thing that was not in the documents, and that was anything about short-term rentals.
Right. Yeah.
So
Hot topic these days for sure.
yes, and especially being where we're at, so we're on the edge of Farragut. In Farragut, short-term rentals aren't allowed.
Yep.
But being that we're technically in the county, we're right outside, literally right outside the county, or right outside Farragut.
Yep.
It was okay. So in that neighborhood, and townhomes make, for the most part, good rentals, right? I would have never thought these would make good Airbnbs, but apparently it was booked for months. Well, the problem they were having is people were causing issues with the other homeowners,
Yep.
right? So they tried to, as a HOA, they went from, hey, we can't have this Airbnb to let's get rid of rentals.
Yep.
Well, there ended up being 5 or 6 homeowners that had rentals in there. Well, they all were like, "Hey, we bought this.
Yeah.
There was so now it's become there are attorneys involved now, and that's very unfortunate. But at the same time, I was like, okay, so long-term rentals are a thing,
Yeah.
right? That's from a real estate standpoint, like that's a thing. Airbnbs, I can understand different people. I mean, nobody wants a hotel in their neighborhood. I assume nobody does.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't know who's coming in and out.
No.
I get it. I mean,
Yeah, but when you start telling like the unintended consequences of turning around and saying we're not going to allow rentals in our neighborhood,
yeah.
that's not from a real estate agent standpoint. I'm like, okay, well, you just took out all sorts of potential buyers
Yeah.
for your home.
And you've eliminated, life happens for people. You move into a neighborhood, you've lived there for 2 years, next thing you just lost your job.
Right.
The market's slow, so you can't sell the house, but you've got to leave.
You need to rent it out.
What do you do?
Yes.
So there's a responsibility there, don't get me wrong, but I can't financially handicap myself just because you want to arbitrarily take away a rule that was previously provided,
Yeah. So the funny part about all that, and I agree 100%. Bottom line is, I think when you do that, you run the risk of lowering property values.
Yeah.
The unintended consequence. When they started going through all that, our HOA took a look at our docs, and then we also amended it not to allow short-term rentals. I kind of made the argument of I don't think our homes would make good short-term rentals, but then I was like, well, I guess it's better to maybe define it and have it in there than not.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, but ultimately the goal should be every decision should be measured based on how does it financially impact the other properties. Your goal is to make sure you maximize the value of every property in the community. And if your decision negatively impacts it, then you need to maybe rethink your decision.
I agree. How many HOA properties do you manage?
We're just a little over 30.
30.
Yeah. Communities. Yeah.
30 communities.
Yep. Some of them are as small as, crazy enough, 18, up to over 700. 700 units. So.
And mainly here in the greater Knoxville area?
Yeah, here in East Tennessee, we try to, drop a pin and, try to stay within an hour and 10-minute drive, because we want to make sure that we can respond in a timely manner. You want to be efficient and effective. I don't want to be dropping the ball because it's, outside, an hour and a half or something, 2 hours. You can't do that well.
Efficient and effective.
Yeah.
That ties back to that service thing.
Yeah.
All right, so from your opinion, obviously your livelihood is based on HOAs. I get a lot of people. I'm not going to say I get a lot of people. I don't get a lot. I get a select few who, right off the bat, will either when talking about, they're like, absolutely no HOA. Then I get people who on our marketing, say we're running social media ads for a property.
Yep.
That just, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, you can't read the comment without adding some sort of redneck slang to it. Talking about how they would never live in an HOA community again. Yada yada yada. As if that house is now bad because it's in an HOA community. Well, what's your take on that? Why are people so one side or the other? I mean, my question really is, are HOAs good or bad?
Yeah. The HOAs are not bad, but HOAs are not for everyone. If you own every toy known to man, RV, camper, razor, boat, trailers, everything, and you want to store them outside, you're probably going to have some challenges finding an HOA that's going to allow you to do that. So it's all about personal property rights, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you move into an HOA, those rights are restricted, right? And that's what an HOA is. It does restrict some of your abilities when it comes to your personal property rights. And so that's why you need to educate yourself. And that's the biggest problem. People don't take the time to educate themselves on one of the biggest financial decisions they make. And they get in and they get frustrated day one of finding out, oh, I can't have my boat here, or hey, my kids' toys can't be out front. I get it. It may seem lunacy to go, I can't have the basketball go over here. But that's just the way it is. It's the way the governing documents are written, and we have a responsibility to enforce them, because it's not just you, it's the other 150 properties as well.
Yeah. So most of the time when I see those kind of comments, it's not that the HOA is the problem. It's that person's lifestyle doesn't fit what it's like to live in an HOA community.
I encourage you, if you want to blow something up, I mean, and I'm a guy who, I mean, with my kids, trust me, we like to have fun. I shoot my bow, and I shoot guns, and I taught my kids how to make dry ice bombs, and crazy enough, my neighbor came running out of the house when it exploded, but I said it was just dry ice, just dry ice, but it was loud. And so, but I went and bought 6 acres because we're probably going to do something different at our later stages of life. And so we're preparing for that. But with kids, my wife wanted that family atmosphere and for my kids to have access to other kids quickly.
Yeah.
And so not every season of life is, requires certain access to HOAs, and maybe the second season of life is not an HOA, or maybe it's a condo, you know? And so your life changes, and so probably your circumstances will change of how you want to live too. So
I agree. I 100%. I'm in all reality, I live exactly. I mean, I have a boat, I have a camper. The camper I store off, on a lot, so I pay a monthly storage fee.
Yep.
I am very aware that, when you have a camper and you store it off site, you have to bring it to the house. in order
Yes.
to get it ready. So I typically let our neighbors know, like, hey, we're going out of town. We're taking the camper. I'm gonna bring it in Friday afternoon, and we'll be gone Saturday morning.
Yep.
And everybody's cool with that. So we just try to be very aware of our neighbors.
Yeah.
And that has worked out well. The other type of person though that I think that needs to be overly knowledgeable on what they're buying into is going to be like the small business owner who might work from home, and especially if you're in the trades, because I see that a lot in neighborhoods, especially in neighborhoods that don't have, say for instance, a maybe a strong HOA or any HOA.
Yeah.
Is you're driving through the neighborhood and then there's that one house that has 4 work vans and some trailers. And I'm not against people, obviously, like love our
It's their
trades
livelihood.
people. It's their livelihood. I just don't know that living in a neighborhood like that is the best. It's not helping anybody else out in that community.
Yeah. It's so, again, back to the governing documents, which is your bylaws, your CC&Rs, your master deeds, those type of things. Commercial vehicles is written in there a lot of times. You're going to see it a lot of times. And so how you define a commercial vehicle matters. You've got to explain to people, this is what constitutes a commercial vehicle. Is it something that's branded?
Right.
Or is it a size of a vehicle, or is it the type of vehicle? Is it the number of axles of a vehicle? Is it the license plate? Because maybe that same F-350 could be a family vehicle, right? But at the same time, over here, this guy's got it as a work vehicle, but it's got a commercial tag on it, right? So how do we differentiate between those two, kind of things? And so that makes it hard sometimes because you want to be fair in how you do these things. So that's why we try to document, okay, what do we consider this? So not everything's always black and white. So we want to, and I say commercial vehicle because that's a very good example of, okay, what are we going to say as a commercial vehicle so that everybody knows and we can share that with them and go, hey, by the way, if this is happening right now and you feel like what you're doing is in violation of what we've established, we'd like to give you a courtesy of maybe 7 to 14 days to rectify that. And then after that, we're going to start enforcement. Like I said, you don't want to come out swinging because that does nothing for you. You've got to live with these people.
Right.
You're the board, but you live in that same neighborhood.
Right.
It does you nothing to come out swinging and just hitting everybody with a sledgehammer.
No, and the hard part about that is those feelings don't just go away. Like people,
they don't go away. They
grudges,
last for years.
They hold those grudges forever.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one. And I think that's another reason why it's very good that there are companies like yours that can be that middleman, and to walk people through it and potentially maybe avoid that, because at the end of the day, the reason why I think all of us live here is because we like the community.
Yeah.
Right. There's other aspects, but generally, to say East Tennessee has very likable people.
I tell everybody East Tennessee sucks. I don't want them to live here. There's too many people coming.
Oh my God!
I can't drive, like we discussed this morning. I can't wait till Can we extend spring break another week so we can drive? Yeah.
So let's just go ahead and talk about this. Okay, so currently where we're sitting right now is pretty much in the heart of Farragut, West Knoxville, and it's Monday morning, and the traffic, it felt like a ghost town.
Yeah.
This morning. It was almost eerie, because and I really it's all children related. Yeah. It's just so interesting to me because traffic has been a hot topic lately, and not that I will say this, depending on where you're coming from, our traffic is nothing.
Yeah.
But if you've been here any length of time, you've seen the difference. And it is amazing. I typically stop. I got to break this habit. I typically stop at the Dunkin' Donuts on the way into work, even though I have coffee at home. Yeah. It's just a weird habit I've got. Friday. was on my way to BNI. So I'm on time. I'm on a time crunch, and the place was a madhouse. Right. I ordered from my driveway. Got there. I still waited 10, 15 minutes to get coffee, and I was like, "This is bananas." This morning, there was literally nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the 4 employees behind the counter were kind of standing there. There was 1 car in the drive-through, and nobody else inside. The only difference, spring break.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
One mass exodus. What a quality of life we got.
Well, and then I'm like, okay, so what beach did they all go to?
Yeah. Everybody that we know, which is interesting, goes to Destin area, right?
Destin is the...
And I grew up North Myrtle Beach area, in high school. My parents lived down there. But so we always go to Myrtle Beach, one, because family's there. So we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? And so we meet family, plus we're going to the beach. But, yeah, everybody around here goes to Destin. So we're going to have to start, I guess, making some friends and go to Destin.
Well, so I will tell you...
You go to Destin?
Yes.
Have you ever invited us? Okay. Just checking. I was just checking.
So a previous real estate company that we work with, they hold a conference every year in the Destin area, and that's really how we got introduced to it. I mean, we went 6 years in a row to this conference, maybe 7, and I will say it's pretty beaches, nice water. It is a nice area, and it's relatively short drive.
Yeah.
I mean, was
6.5 hours?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I will say it's a boring drive. Yeah. You go through parts of Alabama. I don't know why people move to Alabama. I don't want to. Not that we're in East Tennessee. We're not Alabama fans to begin with.
We won't say anything negative.
Yeah, so, but man, the drive.
There are banjos in that state too.
Yeah, there are. But the drive-through isn't. But it's a short day. I mean, you can be there, and it's nice.
Sadly, that's what makes Knoxville so great. You can get to anywhere you want to be from here.
Yeah, 100%.
Lake, mountains, ocean. You pick your activity. It's available to you.
So out of that, what part of those things do you partake in?
Oh, anything outdoors.
Anything outdoors.
Obviously, we both got boats, and that's fun. We love that now. That seasonal life is so much fun.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
One of the major advantages of having a boat is your kids. As they get older, they leave you. Well, you buy a boat, so all of a sudden, especially a wake surf boat, they come back. You're like So my wife's happy because the kids are coming back. But the bad thing is they bring their girlfriends with them. You're like, dang it. Now they're eating everything and drinking all of our stuff, and you're like, well, I guess we got the kids back. It worked out.
It is fun.
Yeah.
People don't understand how nice our waterways are, like how enjoyable that is. Yeah. The view, the ability to just to find a cove, to anchor, to chill, or to do like you're saying, like. I mean, there is plenty of runway for somebody to just cruise.
What is there? 3,000 miles of hiking? I don't know what it is. It's something crazy, And I love being in the woods, hunting, bow hunting. There's nothing you can't do in this area.
And bike trails. There's a lot of
bike. Oh, we got one of the best bike locations in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So. Circle back around just a little bit, and we'll wrap up. Who is a good client and who is not a good client? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like you're in business to manage HOAs, but not every HOA is going to be a good fit.
Right. Yeah. No. The best client is one that's looking for a partnership. I say that. I think I've said it multiple times now. We have to work together, and if you're looking for a partnership, we're all in. But if you're thinking, hey, we're going to hire this company and then we're just going to walk away, then that doesn't work because you're the authority. You're the ones that's making the decisions. We execute based on those decisions. We're the liaison between the board and the homeowners. And if the board's not participating in that, that just leaves us. And then the homeowners start to get frustrated because there's no direction, there's no communication. And so that doesn't work well for us. So the size of the community, like I said, big or small, we'll manage them all. But a lot of the smaller communities that want management don't have the resources to hire a management company. And so that's difficult because they're aging communities, a lot of them. They've got maybe anywhere from 15 to 40, 30 homes or so, and there's just nobody wanting to volunteer. And there's the 80-20 rule, which is more like a 90-10. You've got 5 people on a board, but only one person's doing everything. And I mean everything. The other people are just figureheads. They won't even show up to the meetings. They don't even respond to emails. They don't, approve architectural requests. We had a community that we've actually had 3 non-renewals that we've said, hey, this just isn't working for us. We hope you succeed and we want you to be successful, but right now it's not working for us because there's no engagement. And so we just, hey, we need you to find somebody else because we got to have a partnership. And we don't, liability wise, if I'm sending you financials and for 16 months you don't reply back going approved to any of them for 16 months, that's a problem for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the only eyes looking at your financials. You need to have that, engagement to say, okay, we know exactly what's going on with our management company. We're comfortable. We know they're doing the right thing for us. Hey, community, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that they're doing the right thing, and that's the biggest thing.
And at the end of the day, everything. I mean, the people who live in these communities are human. The people on the board are human, and the people who manage the communities are human. And therefore, not everything is going to be perfect all the time. But to be able to point those things out, talk about it, fix it, whatever. That's
we make mistakes. Trust me. We're not perfect, and that's why we want you to look at the financials because maybe we miscoded something, or maybe we paid a bill we shouldn't have paid. That happens, but that and sometimes the board will do something and hire somebody too, and not even tell us about it, and we get a bill and we're not paying it, and then the vendor's getting frustrated because he's not getting paid. We're like, we don't even know what you're talking about.
right.
And so communication's everything.
I will say that is, and this may be, I probably should call this podcast communication is so important or something like that. Like just to, not only is communication so important, but it's also, I found, one of the hardest things we do. Yeah. If we could all just become better communicators, I think things would work so much smoother. Being able to relay information and do it in a way that, I mean, to your point, I think your biggest thing is that I've picked up from talking to you is you don't have to hit everything with a sledgehammer. I think some people, instead of just communicating, especially early on, they let stuff build and then they're just like, wham.
Yep.
Like, and then the other person's like, whoa, what's going on? So that's all right. So one question, and I'll be honest with you, this is something I have no idea about. How does one come up with a fee for management for HOAs? Is it based on houses? Is it based on amenities? Is it based on budget? Like what? How do you?
Yes, and yes.
Okay, so it just depends on the community.
Yeah, so you got to look at the overall. What is my time? It's really just time. So you look at the time spent managing. What's it going to take to manage that community, right? So you got an X number of houses. Then you've got, do they have a clubhouse? Okay. Do they have pool? Okay. Do they have tennis courts? All right. Are any of those rented? Okay. So now I got to manage a renting schedule for each one of those items, possibly, right? Oh, do they have boat slips? Okay, boat slips in East Tennessee, pretty prevalent, in some of these communities. I mean, but some of them aren't owned. They're kind of a second HOA. Crazy enough, they have a boat association as well as the homeowners association, but the homeowners association is kind of the master over the secondary association. So are we responsible for that? And so that you have to look at what that time spent to manage those assets looks like, and then that's how you develop a fee. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you got to pull a lot of information in.
Yeah, am I doing one inspection a month, or am I doing one inspection every week?
Yeah.
Yeah, think about that. So we have one property. They want us out there every week doing an inspection. So we do one inspection for a week.
There you go.
Obviously, that's going to cost more.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. All right, so we talked a little bit about like outdoor activities that we enjoy doing. Um, Tell me what's well, first of all, let's back up. You moved here from elsewhere. Um, how long ago?
16 years. Be 16 years will be this year.
So, out of the places you live, like why East Tennessee? Why Knoxville? Why?
Well, the job was here.
But
Yeah.
then you stayed.
Correct. I'll never leave.
So that's what I'm getting at. Why?
This
why
is
would
going out there. I can't tell everybody the secrets.
you...
No. We don't want them all to know. You know. No,
I will tell you that that I'm seeing this more and more, especially in like Facebook groups and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen people
Horrible. You don't want to come here.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
There's this one guy. I would love to actually like. I want to kind of put a face with a name. There's this one guy going around. Every time he sees a post, he immediately goes, "The crime is crazy," right? And he's especially in Farragut, right? Like I mean. And I don't know if the guy's joking or if he really believes it.
Yeah,
or,
he's like,
or
I got to slow this down.
Yeah, I mean, but he is like, he just wham, like you don't want to move here.
Yeah. I think Knoxville is the fifth fastest growing city in the country, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. If I've read a couple different things.
Yeah,
So the influx of people is crazy, and the reason why, it's still very cheap to live here. It's a very nice community. People are great. Again, we talked about it's the best place to be to go from here to anywhere.
Yes.
And, tax-wise, my property taxes are nothing. You don't pay property taxes on vehicles. You don't pay. There's so many advantages that, it's just the cost of living and the quality of life is, you can't beat it.
Can't beat it. Can't beat it. I would agree. What's one of your favorite places to eat around here?
Big Kahuna Wings.
Okay.
It's the best wings in Knoxville.
Okay, so which one?
You'll never have bad wings at Big Kahuna Wings at Farragut. They'll never not be hot, and they'll never not be perfect. I don't know how to tell you.
I will say, so I have had Big Kahuna Wings. We went through a wing kick for a while there, and I definitely ate my fair share. I probably gonna have to get some this week now that you brought it up, because we haven't had wings in a while.
Yeah.
But no, those are good, and I mean like, Big Kahuna Wings is a big deal around here. We have a whole festival.
Yeah.
Around that.
Yeah, they smart marketing on their part.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so Big Kahuna Wings
and Crafty Bastards. Have you been to Crafty Bastards?
I have not.
Yeah, the one here in West Knoxville is awesome.
No, I need to.
Oh my God. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, great atmosphere. You'll like it. Man.
So that's awesome. What's something that you wish Knoxville did have? I have no clue.
What should they have? I don't know.
You ever travel around and you're like, man, I wish we had one of these?
Yeah, it's not like, I wish we had a professional team. That would only bring more traffic.
We don't need a professional team though. We're like becoming one of the nation's. I mean, we're known for our college sports.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna have.
I wear orange when I go hunting. Does that count? No.
Okay.
My kids are UT fans.
Okay.
I'm not a UT fan, but it's a great game. It's a great time.
Okay.
Oh, it's fun. But I'm a West Virginia crazy enough football guy because I grew up in the hills of West Virginia when I was a kid. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're rooting.
You see the similarities of Tennessee and West Virginia: hills, mountains.
Yeah.
It's just great. Yeah.
So,
but there's nothing missing. I don't see anything major that needs to come here. If anything, the best thing we could do for Knoxville would be probably focus on our infrastructure as the airport, and that's going to allow for some growth that we can't potentially. I think that deters people, big companies from coming here. It's just because our airport is pretty slim.
Yeah. I would agree. Airport. I would say airport, and we need. I'm sure our local government, if they, hindsight is what it is, right? It's always 2020. But if they could go back in time, they would have probably started some road projects
Yes,
sooner.
yes.
And I'll say it time and time again. One of the things that we have here that is partly it's an advantage, but when it comes to traffic, it's a disadvantage, and that is the fact that we have two major interstates that come together right through the heart of Knoxville.
Yep.
And the other day, we were doing one of these. Matter of fact, and there it rained a little bit, and I had Daniel Barton was here, and it took him an extra 45 minutes, I think he said, to get here. But the interstate was messed up all day long. And I don't even know what like, I didn't.
That's the thing. You're like, you get 10 miles down the road and you're like, well, what was it? You're like, there was nothing there.
But we have a lot of truck traffic that comes through here. We have a lot of through traffic that comes through here. So I definitely would say our population size isn't that overwhelming. It is overwhelming, I think, for our interstate system in a moment. Right now, it's probably smooth sailing. Because there's nobody in town.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's awesome. So, man, is there anything that I didn't cover that we didn't cover that you're like, hey, I need to get the message out?
We're growing. We continue to grow. We've doubled in size every year for almost 5.5 years.
That's awesome.
Which you couldn't. It's a gift. It's the best decision I think I've ever made as far as starting this company. But we're looking for quality employees because it's the only way we're going to provide the quality of service that we want to provide.
So you're hiring.
So we're always hiring. Yep. Always looking. We're always recruiting. So if you've got people out there that want an opportunity at a career, not a job, but a career, there's a lot of potential.
Awesome. What's the best way for somebody to get let's just say I'm tired of running my HOA. I'm tired of dealing with the current company. What's the best way for me to get a hold of you?
Yep, you can call us at 865-444-4077 or go to our website, www.hpcmanagementgroup.com. We have an online form there that you can fill out for management services. Just plug in your information and we'll get back to you. Guaranteed.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. There's one thing I realized we didn't talk about.
My looks?
No.
Oh.
No, the name.
Oh, HPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so HPC actually does stand for something. H is for home owners, property owners, and condominium associations. So, yeah.
So everything
HPC, yeah.
Everything you manage.
That's exactly right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate you being on the show today, coming and talking with me. Hopefully everybody learned a little bit more about HOAs and what HOA management companies do. And also learned that they're not all bad. Not everybody's a good fit for them.
Yep.
But if you're having issues, you probably have the wrong people in the wrong places. And there's a solution out there.
Yep.
Robert here would be a great person for you to talk to help you get that HOA straightened out. So yeah, if you have any questions about real estate, give me a call. But if you have any questions about your HOA, give Robert a call. All right, man.
Yep.
I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.